Shalom all, this is your brother Martin, and in this video I'm going to give you an intro into the fourth beast, because the next couple of my videos are going to be about the form of judgment that's about to fall. And I wanted to bridge between my last video, which also had this sentence, "Now is the time for division brought on by delusion," where I talked about what the Bible codes say about the candidates, specifically one candidate, since we've talked about the other candidate plenty in the Bible codes over the last several years. And I wanted to point out that I wasn't kidding about this. So that was over 2 weeks ago, close to 3 weeks ago, that I put out that video that talked about now being the time of division or of sifting or separation. And it's written that it will start in his house. So I don't know how to sugarcoat this. If you believe that you are of the remnant and above correction, think again. It starts at his house. And what's coming to close as the judgment of the fourth beast falls is the end of 400 years of captivity. And if you read about, the ancient Jewish captivity, there was a short one and a long one. The short one was 70 years. The long one was close to 400 years. And this is a mirror of that pattern. And I'm going to talk about that and reveal to you, what is this? What is this thing that's coming to a close after 400 years? And this is going to be a short video because I wanted to show the delusion that has been put out there that a lot of people are still in the middle of. And the sifting is happening as a result of this delusion. So with that, let's jump into it. As an intro, I want to show you a piece of this Jamie Walden video. I'm only going to show you the first 7 minutes of it.
Whether you realize it or not, the sifting is upon us in real time in this generation, and it's happening at breakneck speed. So I'm just going to get into it. I'm going to share this word for you, an incredibly woeful warning. I think other than on Pastor Benjamin Faircloth's platform, I've never shared any words that the Lord has given with me. Maybe I've loosely addressed them. I've maybe shared one dream the Lord's given to me online. The Lord has not released me. I have binders full of words from the Lord for the last 15 years and dreams and visions. And I'm like, Lord, let me speak them. Lord, let me speak them. He's like, nope. Tongue sticking in the roof of your mouth till the appointed time. Then I'll loose you to speak it. And yet he gave me this word on June 20th of this year. And he just this week, thinking about sifting and the divisions and the separations and the woes and blah, blah, blah. He said, speak that word. The sifting is upon you now. Here was the word of the Lord to me on 20th of June, 2024. This first sentence is about the context of things that were going on in our intimate reality here as a church body. Okay, won't get into it. But it says, the Lord said this. This is the Lord speaking. This is about much more than just you, son. This will serve as a warning to those betrayers who will betray. If you guys don't remember, 90% of our church was gone in a matter of 72 hours. Everybody remember that? It wasn't that long ago. Okay, this is what the context with which he was addressing this to me. This is about much more than just you, son. This will serve as a warning to the betrayers who will betray. The sifting has begun. Woe! I will begin within my church, and what then is the hope for the wicked? Sorrows and pain will rip through my people. Do not fear, it is my hand at work. Because at the time, I'm like, the enemy, the deception, the lies, the powers of darkness, the enemy. He's like, the Lord goes, no, this is my hand at work. Do not give the enemy any credit for what's going on here. It goes on. You will see the distinction. Wonders will soon follow you. Those who oppose you will receive my wrath. That was hard to write. Though it breaks your heart, I am he who is just, and my people will learn to fear me once more. And as he spoke that, he showed me Ananias and Sapphira dropping dead in real time. And as he showed me that when he said this, he showed me pastors, preachers, ministers, and the body, people within the body, literally, physically dropping dead in real time. That's why I said this is a willful word. That's what he showed me. He said, I will teach my people to fear me once more. The day is coming, it is almost here, when you will look for the proud and for the arrogant among you, but you will not find them. My favor will go before the humble in heart, but the arrogant I will hold in derision. I didn't know what that word meant, so I looked it up. You guys can look it up on your own. My favor will go before the humble in heart, but the arrogant I will hold in derision. I have spoken. My eyes search throughout the whole of the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to me. That time is upon you now, son. Distinction, son, great distinction. And therefore, both great joy and great sorrow will beset your eyes. Wait and watch. It will not be long. It will not be long at all. You, son, rest in me. And I say once more, do not fear. I myself will take you by the hand and walk you through it all. No shame will befall you. All the vain utterances and the fiery malice from the hearts of men will be driven away with my tempest. I will not relent. I had to look up the word tempest too. You, son, do not utter what is evil in my sight. Do not repay evil with evil. Speak words of life, for the battle is not yours, but it is mine. In this way you will be distinguished. In this way I will have space to avenge my servants. That was the word of the Lord given to me. It's happening right now, beloved, in real time. The sifting, the divisions, the separating is happening in real time. We are experiencing it. I have experienced it. People all across the world are calling me and emailing me and describing to me uncannily similar experiences of gut-wrenching, heart-vexing, heart-sifting divisions occurring within their intimate realities, most of which are within their churches, their intimate church bodies, and among their own family members. Jesus warned about this day. He warned about false brothers and false teachers and false prophets and betrayers and infiltrators and saboteurs. He warned about the falling away and the apostasy and the complete intolerance of truth. He warned about love, the great destruction of authentic love in the last age among his people. Among whose people? His people. Among his people, he warned, this is what you're going to see. This is what you're going to see. They're going to wax worse and worse. The love of many is going to grow cold. They're going to be proud, treacherous, rash, abusive, full of conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, haters, always learning, never coming to understanding the truth. They will reject sound doctrine. The way of truth will come into disrepute. Oh, and by the way, they're going to put you to death and believe they're serving me. Man, has he been warning.
So that is a very, very difficult word, and I will say that I am recording this on September 19th, which as we sit is the second day of the Feast of Tabernacles, and this is given as a confirmation of very, very difficult decisions that we're having to make within the remnant right now. And so I'm putting this video out there because, as I'm saying, if you believe you are part of the remnant, you are not above correction. And if you see correction coming and reproving coming from your brethren, I encourage you to heed it and do some self-examination. So what is going to happen here is, first, correction is going to come to his house, and then correction is going to come to everybody else. Because everybody else who is not in his house is under the delusion of the beast. So this is why I wanted to talk about this video first, because we are in the middle of the correction on his house, and we are swiftly moving towards the correction of everybody else, which is all those lukewarm. And, I covered this in the last video. So if you need to, go back and watch that one. Delusion. This is the Hebrew word for it. So as I'm not doing tables in this video, no code tables in this video. This is simply, I am putting a marker in time, September 19th, 2024, about the correction that is currently going on within the remnant for everybody out there who watches what I post. And I have a huge backlog of code tables that I need to do on the judgment that's about to befall the beast, and I'm waiting on confirmations as to order and timing and other things for that. But I had it put upon my heart that this word had to be put out today because the correction is ongoing. So with that said, I'm not going to talk about any more correction coming to the remnant. Just know that it is going on. Look for the signs in your own life if you believe that you are part of the remnant. As for everyone else, you're part of a delusion here. And this delusion is about to get a lot stronger in this upcoming thing where we supposedly fold up pieces of paper and stuff them into boxes to choose someone is part of it. When I get into what it is, I'm going to get into, things that, sort of get talked about when you talk about politics. But know that the beast is real. I love this, the continuous publication from this woman, Catherine Austin Fitts, who was an undersecretary of Housing and Urban Development, who saw essentially the financial graft from the starting in the early 90s and has talked about it ever since. She has been faithful to not cover it up, but at the same time, people don't have ears to hear. So, this is actually, JSTOR is an academic resource for published papers. This was in the Journal of World Affairs in 2004, so 20 years ago. You can see the link if you want to go there. I don't have access because I'm not in an Institute of Higher Learning. So, of course, anybody who wants to read these things, they don't give you access to it. But you can get access another way. So if you go to that link, you're going to see, that you can't actually see it until you create an account. And I don't really want to create an account. But if you look at the abstract, I'll just read it for you. This is the beast. This report, The Black Budget of the United States, is an analysis of the federal financial records revealing shocking evidence that a very large portion of the nation's wealth is being illegally diverted since several decades. So this was published in 2004, 20 years ago. And I'm going to make a claim about what started at 20 years before that. So we're talking 40 plus years ago. Large portion of the nation's wealth being illegally diverted into secret, unaccountable channels and programs with unspecified purposes, including covert operations and subversion and clandestine military R&D at home. Public institutions have been infiltrated and taken over by shadowy groups in the service of powerful private and vested interests, often at the expense of the common good. Where have you heard that before? Well, you've heard everybody talking about the deep state. Well, the actual hard evidence of it was published over 20 years ago. And I, in the last video I posted, I even, my parents would the ultimate reporter who had the ultimate amount of credibility for them was Bill Moyers from Public Broadcasting Service. And he did an in-depth expose that I linked it from the description of the last video. So know that this is not some made-up theory. This is real. So if you go and actually you search for, I just think her name and maybe some words here, you'll find a different version of it here, and I'll link this link from the description of the video, and also link the full Jamie Walden video so you can watch that entire thing if you wish. But this is the text of this journal article on a site where you can actually access it. And so I'll just read a couple things. Black budget, what black budget? At the time of the attack on the World Trade Center, now that was 3 years before this was published, the Government Accounting Office, the Pentagon, had incurred $3.4 trillion of undocumentable transactions. That is to say, there were $3.4 trillion worth of financial transactions for which there was no discernible purpose. The day before the attack, Secretary of Defense warned lack of control over the budget was a greater danger to national security than terrorism. After the attacks, they conveniently stopped publicly disclosing anything about it. The other interesting thing is that, significantly, the government does not employ double-entry bookkeeping, which has been standard accounting practice since the 17th century. All right, the 17th century, that would be the 1600s. What would cause that standard practice to be put out there? Well, interestingly enough, I was talking about 400 years, and the 1600s is what? 400 years ago. So let's dive further into this onion and peel back the layers. Again, I will link this so you can go through and read these things and, dig into this rabbit hole that who knows how deep it goes. It goes pretty deep. So now that we're back on to the beast, why talk about this beast, and what is the significance of the 400 years, and how do I tie this ugly mess of a premise that I've put together? Well, we all talked about the Revelation 12 sign that was seen in 2017. If you don't know about it, I'm sure you can find hundreds of videos on YouTube. But it would stand to reason that if that was the Revelation 12 sign, we're now past that. And so if you start to read Revelation 13, again, I use the Institute for Scriptural Research version because I think that's the closest to the Hebrew. You'll see what John says in this vision. He says, "And I stood on the sand of the sea," so the beach, "and I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns on his horns. His horns had 10 crowns, and on his heads names of blasphemy." Right, and he describes the beast like a leopard, and his feet were of a bear, and all these things. And so those are all the nations that are part of the beast. So this is interesting. There is a beast coming up out of the sea. And the previous beast was of the land. So there's a difference between beasts of the land and beasts of the sea. Why is this beast, which is the 4th beast, coming up out of the sea as opposed to the land? Well, if you think about the founding of the United States and the Constitution, you will know that it was founded on the law of the land, which is English common law. And all of the Bill of Rights and the guarantees of the Constitution are premised on the foundation of English common law. And what English common law says is that people are endowed to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness free of encumbrances unless we harm others, which means there must be harm for us to actually violate the law. And really, the law of the land, I won't say it matches the precepts of the Torah, but at least derives from the precepts of the Torah. And the law of the land is what the essentially Freemasons who set up this country used to frame the Constitution, which guarantees certain rights, as opposed to what they were leaving, which was essentially politics controlled by bankers. And so this is why, up until after Andrew Jackson, the people running the government resisted attempts to institute any kind of central bank, and now we are where we are. So if that is the law of the land, and by derivation the beast of the land, what is this beast of the sea? And what does it have to do with 400 years? Well, the pattern of that we've talked about is Israel going into captivity in Babylon. And Israel goes into captivity. Once a short captivity, and others a longer captivity. So you could almost think of the lesser Israel and the greater Israel. But Yahushua says, "I come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel," which is the 10 tribes. And so there's this 400-year period that's being brought to a close right now. And that pattern is Israel, the people, not the country in the Middle East. That country in the Middle East is a big old smokescreen to distract you from what's really going on. The pattern is 400 years of captivity, and this is bondage, but it's bondage through invisible chains of debt. And in ancient times, Babylon was one of these places where Israel went into captivity. I realize I misspelled Israel here, so let me change that. Babylon was one of the ancient places where Israel went into captivity, but the current state is described as Mystery Babylon. And Mystery Babylon is what I'm calling the beast of the sea. And so the question is, what happened 400 years ago that created the fourth beast in our time, the end of days, that's known as Mystery Babylon in the King James Version of the Bible? Well, the answer is the East India Company, which is the world's first shareholder corporation. Yep, forgot the end quote. And Queen Elizabeth I was, I won't say she was the only shareholder, but she was the major shareholder in the East India Company. So the law of the sea was essentially invented because of the need of the East India Company. Why? Because you had the law of England, English common law, and then you had other places like India where the Queen and those advising her figured out, oh, you could just sail your Navy ships there and escort cargo ships and load them up with lots of tea and spice for dirt cheap and then sell it for big bucks over here and in Europe. So that's why, at least that's the idea behind the creation of the East India Company. But what you're going to find is the entire law of the sea was created to support the business model of the East India Company, and then they realized what they could do for the new world or in the new world. And I don't know what the motivations are. I just know the timing. And I'm making the claim, and I will show you a timeline in the next video, how this has been being executed for 400 years now. And that means that the powers behind this started planning this more than 400 years ago. And so to understand, if you go back to my channel and look 2 videos ago at the video entitled Spiritual Warfare, that was dated August 24th, 2024 on my channel, I give an introduction to understanding demons. And I'm going to play you this piece from Dr. Michael Heiser, who I respect greatly. He's I think a very well-respected Bible scholar. And I'm going to have him explain. It starts with the prohibition in Leviticus not to contact spirits of the dead, essentially. And people who do meditation have different euphemisms for these other spiritual realms, but there is a prohibition in the Bible in Deuteronomy not to do these things, and I'm going to let Dr. Heiser explain to you why, and then you're going to realize that these powers that plan things in 500-year timescales absolutely do exist, and this is their plan. By the time we get to the end of this video, which is turning out to be longer than I thought when I originally thought I was going to record it. So here's Dr. Heiser.
The whole point of these kinds of prohibitions are, if you sort of get sucked into the spirit world on the dark side, or you traverse into it, you don't know what you're getting. It's not your realm. Don't think you know what you're encountering, what you're being told. You don't have any feel for this space over here. When you look at some of these passages, there are interesting phrases, like some of these spirits are called knowing ones. Well, what do they know? Well, they know lots of things because they've been around a whole lot longer than you have. They've seen what happens to people, to human civilization. They know what happens in the spiritual world. I mean, their knowledge base is a whole lot bigger than yours. And they can deceive you with that knowledge. Don't listen to them. They're going to give you information. They're going to give you secret knowledge, but it might just lead to your own destruction. It might lead you to worship them. They'd really like that. Being worshipped, being followed, being obeyed is appealing to supernatural beings in rebellion because it's a way to subtract glory and worship from God, who is their adversary, and also to empower them in such a way that you, who they want disposed of anyway, you make yourself more vulnerable to that. So those are the two sort of fundamental reasons why a supernatural intelligence, again, that is in rebellion already with God, and that relationship, according to Scripture, is irreversible. There's nothing in Scripture that suggests that a supernatural being in rebellion can be redeemed.
All right, so with that, you understand the motivation of coming up with a 500-year plan to enslave you and make you worship idols to lead to your own destruction. So with that, we're going to go back to the East India Company, which was the first shareholder corporation for which the law of the sea was created. And when Yahushua came back and essentially kicked the moneylenders out of the temple and argued with the Pharisees were the interpreters of the law. That's what they called the Torah, the law. And so they were lawyers. The Pharisees were the lawyers of the day 2,000 years ago. And what had they done? They invited the money into the temple to corrupt it. And what do we see today? Well, we see lawyers practicing the law of the sea, enslaving all of us in invisible chains of debt. And so nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And because these beings we're dealing with have much greater knowledge and much greater time spans than we do, as individual humans, we would stand no chance, which is why we need a Messiah. And the interesting thing is, even though we are in this experience, and we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. This has already been won. The Messiah already defeated these forces. Dr. Heiser explained to you why they would go through this deceit and plan anyway. It's because they don't have anything better to do until Judgment Day. Time doesn't really exist. They've already been defeated, but while we're in time, this is unfolding for us. And when I show you the flag of the East India Company, you will understand that this plan was hatched more than 500 years ago and executed over the last 400 years. And this is the beast that the Messiah is now going to bring judgment to imminently. In the next couple videos, we'll talk about more about the beast and more about the form the judgment is going to take. So with that, let me show you some information on the East India Company. Here is the flag, developed in 1600, right? When was the United States supposedly founded? 1776. Here is the East India Company, the first joint stock company founded in 1600, supposedly dissolved in 1874. That's interesting. 1874, that would be 3 years after the Act of 1871. Go look at that on Google and you'll find all the conspiracy theories about what happened to the law of the sea in 1871. In any case, this should be pretty good evidence of the fact that this has been planned all along. And so if you look at the various versions of the East India Company flag and the modern depictions of it, you'll see the similarities and you can draw your own conclusions. So with that, brothers and sisters, I'm going to say shalom to you all. I hope for those of you celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles that you all have a Tov Feast of Tabernacles, and I will see you in the next video.